Hello, friends. Today I wanted to go through my day 3 and 4 update on the Hfreeze Sacrifice Paladin build and run through some of the things I'm going to be doing with the build in the future, where it's at, where it's been, how I kind of approached it moving into it early, and what I'd do differently if I did it all again, as well as what might be next for characters in general in PD2. So day 3 and 4 were pretty much the same. The big addition to day 4 is I was able to finally get an Infinity on my Merc. And Infinity on my Merc is a significant, huge increase to damage, something that I've been trying to buy up and grab earlier rather than later, but I just couldn't get people to buy the more high-ticket items I had, as it is still relatively early. But luckily, some of those things sold, got conviction, got my gear squared away, and finally got to the point where I feel the build is really online for where it's at. At this point, the build is what I'd consider at its pretty much peak of where I'm going to get it without starting to spend copious amounts of high runes. The main thing about the build is I would definitely suggest not transitioning into it until you're at a pretty solid point. That's something I've learned from going into it relatively early. As you know, if you watch the previous updates, I transitioned into Hfreeze Sacrifice pretty early on when I was still wearing the full Griswold set. And while it did okay, I think Holy Bolt was just genuinely better and safer and easier to play with less stress or risk of dying. I think for anyone looking to transition into this build, I would suggest waiting until you have things like an Azarath socketed with at least 3 cold facets, probably a good Nightwings, maybe with 2 to 3 facets, a Skywarden, and good enough res to maybe put facets in that. Even right now, I'm still using some Griswold armor with corrupted physical damage reduction and good PDR on that, as PDR is one of the weakest points of this build, physical damage being the thing that is most likely to kill me, and I'm most likely going to upgrade that, but I'll go over the gear upgrades later. But where I'm at with this build right now, I think the addition of conviction really brings it to the point I'm comfortable with. I can pretty easily go through tier 1s fast, tier 2s, and tier 3s. Obviously, with the increasing difficulty, depending on the modifiers, these things get a little sketchier as far as if I'm going to live or not. For the most part, it's a very easy, smooth, fun to play build. You joust, you hold right click, corpse explosion goes off, pro lifts, blows up. Some of the really fun things are like going up to a boss and hitting something with a bunch of minions around it, like the boss in Torajan Jungle when it's got all the little maggots, and it instantly explodes the boss. Already? Pop, 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 pop. One shot of the boss. That's so funny. That stuff's really cool. I get asked a lot why I'm playing this over Vengeance, as Vengeance functions very similarly. And the main reason is I like the corpse explosion mechanic. And if I was playing a Necro, I would have been playing corpse explosion Necro this season, but I'm not playing a Necro. I'm playing a Paladin. So I decided to do corpse explosion on Paladin. Let's talk about transitioning into this build. So if you're currently playing something like Holy Bolt or maybe even Vengeance and you're looking at going towards Hfreeze Sacrifice or a sacrifice build in general, and you're looking at the native aura version, which means you're actually skilling the aura rather than using rune words, well, I would suggest you don't start here with Hfreeze. If you really want to get away from Holy Bolt, which I think is up to the individual, and once again, I'm going to rephrase something I mentioned before, I think Holy Bolt's a fantastic build, and I think you can scale it really well. I think with enough combat skillers, a torch, and Annie, really good gear, there's a lot of strong endgame gear for Holy Bolt and FOH. I think you can scale that build to where you clean maps very fast. Don't underestimate it, and don't take my FOMO where I switched as an indication that that build is not solid. It's something you could play for a long time. In fact, if you go look at the Paladin ladder, most people are playing it still. A lot of people play it all the way to 99. It's a good build because nothing's immune to it half the time. Now, as far as transitioning this build, if you're going to do this early, say you have full Griswold, say you're at a point where you don't want to play Holy Bolt anymore, or you're like in Vengeance and you want to swap it up, I think you should go with Sanctuary Sacrifice. I generally think Sanctuary Sacrifice is an easier transition. One of the main reasons for this is that Sanctuary actually reduces the magic resistance of targets, and also that Sanctuary does not have any concern about resistances or immunities nearly as much as Cold Fire or Lightning does. Most things already have low magic resistance or no magic resistance, and Sanctuary lowers the magic resistance of things that you're fighting. It's an extremely powerful ability. It makes it very easy to progress early when you don't have a lot of gear. I think when you're going through the early stages of one of these sacrifice builds, that's your best bet, because the other elemental ones don't really come online until you have a lot of elemental pierce or an infinity on your Merc. And now, yes, there's always the option of doing the non-native versions of the element ones, you know, where you put rune words in armor that give you the aura and you stack that and use conviction yourself. That's always an option. In a lot of cases, that might be cheaper than the version I'm playing now, or close to it. I just don't really want to go that route. I personally didn't. You can if you do. It depends what runes you have or where you want to take the build. I think if you really want to play Sacrifice right off the rip and do some cool corpse explosion stuff, you go with the Sanctuary version, you get a ton of plus skill gear. I think that's actually better than Hfreeze until you're at the point where you have at least like 5 to 6 facets and a conviction Merc. I think that's the only point this build felt good. There's definitely a lot of struggling on day 2 and 3 with this build, where I didn't feel super confident in it, and I was kind of losing my mental a little bit about it and thinking about a swap. But once I finally got the items I did, which is fortunate that I got big ticket drops and farmed enough, I got my conviction, and now it feels good. There are still concerns I have about the build, and that brings up kind of where we're going with the build and the gear in the future. So one of my first upgrades would probably be my chest piece. I'm currently running a corrupted Grizz with PDR on it. I mentioned earlier that physical damage is one of the biggest weaknesses of this build. I am running a Sigurd Staunch, and with Holy Shield up and my Merc, I'm sitting at about 11k defense, and that's a pretty good chunk. That's with Sigurd Staunch, so if I take that off, my defense drops. Now, when we're talking actual physical, that doesn't really reduce damage, it just makes it less likely I'm gonna get hit. My elemental damage mitigation is great. I'm capped on res. My cold res is 85. My fire res has corruption on something, so I have 78. I have elemental shield proccing pretty often when I block because of Skywarden, which is the main reason to use Skywarden over an Alma Negra, especially because Skywarden offers up to 4 points to offensive auras instead of just the 2 from Alma. But I do probably need to upgrade that chest. There's a couple upgrades in mind. Arcane's Valor corrupted with sockets is a big one that would give me a lot more effective health due to the vitality. There's also the possibility of a Steel Carapace, very high defense armor with a ton of defense on it that would skyrocket me. Then maybe I consider what I want to do with my belts. Maybe I throw on a Verdugos, maybe something like that. 7 PDR, my Grizz is good enough for now, especially because I can run 3 Topazes. But if I want to really push the build, I want a 3-socket Arcanes or Steel Carapace full of facets. Upgrades other than that, my Azarath's only 3 sockets, so obviously a 4-socket, a 2 to 3 socket Nightwings, ideally 3 with more facets, and trying to square away my resistances to the point that I could put facets in a 3-socket Skyward. Right now I just have diamonds and a 2-socket Skyward. Right now I'm running Amara's, the good neck. If I could get a neck that's better, it would probably be just like a Paladin +2 with more all res, but I have 27 on the Maras. Resistance is something that's really tight right now. So really the path forward with moving this build on is getting my resistances handled so I can then transition some stuff around. To do that, I would most likely need to get all res small charms. All res small charms obviously being pretty pricey, so now you're starting to look at multiple high runes to get this build moving forward. And granted, it's in a fine spot where it is, there's definitely improvements I could use. There's a lot of mods on maps that I see that I'm just like, not doing that. And the tankier I am, the more I can avoid that. Ideally, maybe getting an attack speed corruption on my Drackles eventually and trying to push that next attack speed breakpoint, though it'd be pretty difficult. My rings, I'm still running Ravenfrost and Volcathos, and one of the main things I could do with those is get good corruptions on them. There's also a world where if I can get enough attack rating to not need Ravenfrost, I could potentially swap into a Snow Clash. That way the half-freeze duration from Nightwings and Snow Clash would give me CBF. And in place of that Ravenfrost, I could use another +1 ring, maybe a Wisp, or maybe another Volcathos just for the life. Boots, currently I'm running Silkweave. The main reason I'm running Silkweave, I needed easy mana on kill after I swapped off of the meditation on my Merc from Insight. So mana on kill is still kind of necessary unless I can find some place that has mana leech, and maybe that could be the other ring I swap out for Ravenfrost. But I think mana on kill handles it just fine. Sacrifice itself doesn't cost any mana, but what does cost mana is me charging and jousting around all the time to be mobile through maps. So I need some kind of way to handle that. Another small purchase I can get, which I'll probably get today, which is day 5, is a CTA. That would give me a good amount of effective HP and keep me a little safer in those times where damage is coming in, as well as another skill point, which would be just extra damage. So that'll be something I'm probably going to be grabbing on stream when I start up today, just to get that little extra buffer. Pretty much every major upgrade I can get, or any significant upgrade I get, you're looking at a minimum of a high rune and probably higher than that. So that's where the build starts to become expensive. Luckily, it's a pretty good farmer. I just blast through maps, as you'll be seeing in the footage. I just kind of teleport around, attacking things, and when they die, the overkill damage of the attack explodes, as well as the corpse's health, and everything will pop. Trust me, the build has its swinginess. There's sometimes where I teleport into a pack, and I feel like I'm right-clicking forever. There's other times where I tap one monster, and everything explodes in a huge proliferation of damage, and it just looks awesome. It feels awesome. It's fun. I will say that about the build. When we talk about how the build feels, it is super fun. I enjoy it a lot, and it's been a really big blast to play. So we talked about the gear. We talked about the transition part. Now let's talk about where I'm going with the build. Am I going to keep upgrading it? The easy answer is maybe. I don't know. I am someone who's pretty prone to re-rolling and trying new things, and there's a lot of things that I want to try in the PD2 season. There's a lot of things I want to mess with and test, and I'm a big Necromancer player, so there's always the level of I kind of want to go mess with Necro a little, but there's also other things on Paladin I'm interested in. And while yes, I could spend a lot of high runes and push this build even further to the point where it farms more efficiently, I also kind of have my eyes on some other Paladin builds, one being the Holy Fire Charge charger build, which seems like it could be really enjoyable and kind of fun to play with. I've never played it before, but I've heard good things about it, and I kind of want to mess with it. But I don't really want to just discount this build and move on from it right away, even though I could sell everything and probably easily afford that other build. Because once you get to a certain point with a lot of the builds in this game, you are then just looking at, okay, every upgrade is 1 to 5 high runes. And that's where I'd get very quickly with another one. So for moving forward, it's just those gear upgrades and potentially swapping to something else just to feel it out and test it. Otherwise, I have no real problems with the build. I think the only issue right now is just survivability is not exactly where I want it, and that's a lot of tweaking and moving stuff around here and there. A bigger HP pool would probably be one of the biggest plays. So I think there is a world where I go ahead and grab myself a token of absolution since I'm out of free respecs, and we swap our stats around, try to get ourselves some more just raw HP through vitality, maybe try to get some more life charms, maybe some offensive aura charms with life on them is a good purchase. As far as the build itself, for anyone that has questions on how I was approaching it, it's pretty obvious what you're doing here with this build. You're going Hfreeze and you're maxing its synergies. Resist Cold, Salvation, Blessed Aim, you're maxing those. The question usually people have is, what do I do after that? I opted to kind of split my points between Sacrifice and Joust. I personally think what you want to do is try to get Sacrifice to level 25. Not with raw points, but you got to want to account for some of your plus all skills that you have. Sacrifice 25 is when it reaches its maximum radius for the explosion. And also every level in Sacrifice gives you higher attack rating percent, making it easier to hit. It does increase the raw damage of it, but you're not really scaling any physical damage, so the amount of damage you take from it is really low. But once you get like 5 points into it, it's down to 3% damage, and you're not hitting that hard with it outside of the aura, and the aura doesn't affect the reflect damage. So getting it around 25 is good, and then honestly, you can pump points right into Joust. A lot of people don't take Holy Shield. I took Holy Shield because I wanted the percent bonus defense. I didn't really need the block chance that much, but it helps a little bit too. And then, obviously you have Charge just to move around. Joust is your main mobility. The other important part for Joust is trying to get down to 1.5. I'm at 1.7 right now. I really would like to get that down to 1.5. And if you really are in a world where you feel like your damage is perfect and fine, and you just want to like teleport around, you can get an Almanera. That item is great. It lowers the cooldown on Joust even more without investing a ton of points into it. As for stats, I pushed into Dex for block cap, as block cap is vitally important for this kind of build. I have enough strength to wear all my gear, and then we pumped everything else into vitality. As with 90% of Diablo 2 builds, I put nothing in energy. I will say that when I do this respec again, I most likely need to heavily reevaluate where my stats are, as since then I have gained a bunch of plus attributes on various pieces and now have strength on them or Dex, and I can probably drop a significant amount of those and put them into life. In fact, one of my best purchases right now would probably be a token of absolution to get me the highest HP bonus for cost. Other than that, it's been a lot of fun. I've been having a great time with the build. I think Paladin was a good choice. I mostly selected it initially because my group needed that to fill a slot, and I was pretty happy with it. As if you saw my top classes or starter pick video, Paladin was on there. I am more of a Necro main, but this has been a lot of fun. It's been a different experience. I might make a Necro just for like fun Trav gold farming, but other than that, we're just going to keep mapping and hoping that we turn a profit, as maps are, I don't know, they're an interesting place for me and how I feel about them, about profitability versus just LOD content or in general in the game. But maybe that's a subject for another video if people are interested in hearing my detailed thoughts from someone who plays a ton of ARPGs on how they feel about currency making in this game and what it feels like to your average player. But if you're playing this build or interested in playing this build or you're enjoying Paladin, you can drop by my stream. I'm live every day and we can chat about it. Anyway, I'm Sleepy Cat and I'm tired. Good night.